Hey guys, it's Mark here from ETFtracker, and we are taking a look at two ETFs today as per a viewer request. And the first one is QLTY, the next is QUS. So let's get to the app and let's take a look. All right, we're starting off with QUS to begin with, and this is from BetaShares. It's a global equity play, tracks the S&P 500 equal weight. Let's go full screen so it's easier to see all of that. It has 508 holdings there. Now, if you didn't already know, the equal weight name gives it away a little bit. So unlike the tracking of a normal index that has, say, for example, the ASX 200, S&P 500, there's the European, Asian kind of broad ETF kind of indexes that are being tracked, this one equal weights the holdings underneath it. So it doesn't give or maybe not too much, it doesn't give oversized weightings to certain parts, like for example, Apple and Microsoft and those FANG names that would make up most of an S&P 500 type ETF. So as it says, it aims to track the performance of the S&P 500 equal weight index. Okay, so let's take a look at the holdings. Okay, before we dive in, and as we can see here, there's quite a bit in this Invesco S&P equal weight ETF, RSP. RSP is not something that is listed, and Invesco is not a provider here in Australia, but ETFs can buy other ETFs both overseas and here. So it's got 1.6% to that. And then the rest is all of these different ETFs. So Diamondback Energy, ConocoPhillips, they're all at that 0.22, 0.21% as we go through. And true to its name, it is equal weight. The top 10 holdings only make up 3.6% of this ETF. So that's good. It does what it says on the lid, and you can see that when you look at the holdings. Okay. And now we take a look at performance. Let's expand on that. So we haven't done this in other videos, but we put the cumulative performance, this chart on the front page. On the underlying details, you can see the monthly track record. So there's been months where it has had negative performance, but it's been mostly positive the last couple of months, okay, and has returned 71% over the last 56 months. So we've only got data going back to 2017. If you went to Google Finance, some of these ETFs, and a lot of them actually have much more longer dated track records. This is looking at total returns, which, as we mentioned, includes or incorporates dividend yield as well. So, sorry, it incorporates the dividends. It imagines that those are being reinvested. Now let's take a look at net inflows. It had been quite flat historically, which is really interesting. And it's only in the last the last year or so that it's been seeing more inflows. And if we deep dive further, we can see how that has led to this kind of hockey stick curve for its funds under management, now at 181 million. All right, and going back, let's take a look at transactions, and we can see that it is being traded more. It was struggling to even get to over 500 trades a month. The latest number of trades is 953 for this one. The latest transaction value is 12 million, and that's all monthly data. So here's the transaction volumes, quite high in the recent periods and quite high in the recent months of transaction value as well. Tradability and spread. So, liquidity and spread. So we can see 6.9% for liquidity, 0.1% for spread. Let's take a look at that in detail and see how that's been trending. Okay, it's had some high months, close to 39, 40% for liquidity in previous months, hit 31% more recently this year and late last year. And it's been hovering around nearly the 10% kind of range. So that is interesting there, but historically it's been lower. So it's higher right now, and you want to see liquidity getting higher. Spread has been going down, and that's a good thing. We want to see spreads going down. Distribution, it's had stronger distribution yield in the last couple of months than historically, and you can see that here. And it has lowered its fees more recently. So it was at 0.4%, it's now 0.29%. So if fees are important to you, this can be pretty good. Now, QLTY is interesting because it's a quality play, and I know that because we've looked at this versus QUAL, and we did a video on QUAL, and I'm sure that's in the playlist there. So we can see here performance-wise, let's jump into it. We can see it's only been around for 34 months up to August 2021. its latest returns were 5.1%. That's 64% cumulatively. And you can see how that's performed over time per the months there. So that's quite interesting. So it's a positive performer. In terms of net inflows and total FUM, it's a little bit bigger than QUS, which is cool. It's had 15 million as its latest net inflows, and it's just it's just over 200 million in terms of funds under management, and that's good for something that's been around for 34 months. Transactions wise, this is a nice one because we can see that it's being traded more. So it's hovering around that, trying to get over that 1,000 trades a month. It has now had its highest number of trades in the month of August. So we'll see how it goes in September when that data comes out. Transaction volume, it's had some highs and peaks before. It's not at its all-time highs, but you can see this little bit of a trend going up. So it's just a sign of popularity. Same thing with transaction value. There's more money going into it. So that is definitely interesting. The bid-ask spread and the liquidity, let's take a look at that in more detail. We can see liquidity here, 8.4%. It's had really high months of liquidity before. So this might look like it's a downtrending one, but you want to look at this compared to other ETFs like QUAL that you might be interested in. Its spread's going down. So that's a good thing. It's easier to trade, okay? And then finally, distribution yield. It's had some recent increases in its distributions and it's at 0.35%, and that's still the way it has been for the costs. And finally, let's go into the holdings. And let's take a look here so we can see the average holdings is 0.62%. It's got 162 of those. The top 10 only makes up 20.4%. And market value wise, yeah, $204 million there. Now, before we go, usually we leave it off here. Let's go to the Etf Holdings Tool and let's compare QLTY and QUAL. Okay, so, got to do that in the right area. So QLTY, which is the one we're looking at here. There's also QUAL. There's quite a few other factor type ETFs like QHAL, but let's just take a look at QLTY and QUAL and see what the crossover is there. And we can see here immediately that there's quite a bit of crossover with some of the names. Some names it doesn't have. So QUAL has Microsoft and Apple, and they share Facebook, but QLTY does not have Microsoft or Apple. It doesn't have Google. It doesn't have ASML. If you didn't know what that is, I don't off the top of my head. So you can click here. You can see it's ASML Holding NV. Whatever that company is, you can Google that further. We'll add some features. Maybe we can make it easier for you to Google all of those. And you can just scroll down and see how things compare. But at a high level, QUAL, its top 10 makes up 33% of that ETF. QLTY, its top 10 makes up 20.4%. If you click on the names here, QLTY, we can see it's 162 holdings. QUAL has 300 holdings. But 300 holdings and its top 10 makes up a higher amount than QLTY. There's much more concentration there at that top level, okay? And then as you go further down in QUAL, because it's got more of those holdings, it will dissipate a little bit further. So it's just up to you if you like what's under the hood there. But yeah, that is QLTY and that is QUS that we had at the start. So a double dip, and we hope that you have found this valuable. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you've got ideas for things for us to look at, please do request them. I'm Mark, ETF Tracker. See you later.